Welcome to the EQ Video Tip. I'm your host, Eric Forser, and as always, we're so grateful that you're able to join us here today. We're going to jump into this week's tip right after we review the goals of EQ Video Tip. What's on tap for today? We're going to talk about 3 ways to better connect with your boss when you're not working in the same space. And this comes to us from Carson Tate. And a couple of years ago, you would have thought, hey, I'm always going to go in the office. I'm always going to have time with my boss, whether it's around the water cooler or walking into his or her office at times or just dropping in for lunch, you name it. But those times have changed, and many people work remotely now. Many people have offices that they go into maybe once a week, as we call it hybrid, or twice a week, and sometimes teams are just remote in general. So how do we get that human interaction that we all crave and make sure that we're connecting with our boss while at the same time showing him or her that we're actually doing our work and are up for promotion or up for a great bonus or whatever it might be, and that we are a valued employee? We're going to jump into Carson's tips for us right now. Tip number 1, and this comes to us from Neen James, who is a keynote speaker on attention and being an attention expert. And what James recommends to us is to become our own publicist. And what does that mean? Well, it means once a week or once a month, summarize some of the key tasks that you're working on, how they've gone, where you need help, and what you've accomplished. At the same time, highlight where your boss has helped you out so you can understand and work collaboratively to further promote what you're doing and how it's working within your environment. Remember, being your own publicist is important, but you have to find that fine balance between saying me versus hey, the team is doing a great job. Make sure to strike the right tone, and we'll talk about that in tip number 2. Tip number 2. If most of your interactions with your boss are via Zoom or a phone call or an email, it's important that you tailor your communication to your boss's work style and to his or her preferences. And what do we mean by that? Are they logical and analytical in terms of the way they think? Are they organized but plan focused? Are they supportive and expressive? Or are they strategic and integrated in terms of their idea-oriented plan of attack? And it's important that you determine how your boss works best to his or her strengths as you're walking through whatever it is you're trying to accomplish. Think about things. Do they consistently focus on project details? Or are they sending emails with only a few words to maintain laser focus on something? Do they gesture like me with their hands when they're talking, right? Are they very expressive and they do that? Do they glaze over things when they're looking at project details instead of looking at the big picture? Again, try to pinpoint what they're doing, and then once you have that, you can figure out the best type of approach to how to approach them. And we'll talk about each different approach right after this. Tip number 3, now that we've determined how our boss likes to interact and what their working style is, it's important to actually conform slightly to how you talk to them. And what do we mean by that? Well, if they're logical and analytical and data focused, you want to focus on the data and be very succinct and brief in terms of what you're presenting with them. If they're organized and plan focused and detail oriented, it's going to be very similar, but you want to stay on topic. Choose 2 to 3 topics per meeting. Be sure that you present your ideas sequentially so you're following a logical, organized manner for them. If they're a supportive and emotionally oriented boss, then the conversation is going to be more informal. They're going to want to let it flow and just be open and warm, and there's no hidden agendas out there. Again, you need to tailor your responses and understand how they interact. It may take you a few times before you understand it. And finally, if they're strategic and they're idea-oriented, you want to communicate with minimal details, but provide this big picture, a think big type idea where you're going to figure out how to solve a huge problem for them or solve a great idea for the company. But it's again important to talk about how that aligns to the overall strategy of the company as well. So again, take time to understand what they're like so that you can tailor your needs, or their needs, I should say, to how you communicate with them. Our last tip, assume and grant honorable intent. This is very similar to reframe and refocus something that happens. For example, if you get on a call with your manager and every time he or she on a Zoom or a Teams meeting never puts their camera on, assume honorable intent. Maybe they are having a bad hair day, or maybe there was just too many Zooms for that day that they couldn't get themselves to focus on the camera, or maybe they had to go somewhere for their family. Again, try to figure out and assume that they're doing what's honorable and is best for you and for them at the same time. At the end of the day, we have to remember we're all human. So even your boss has a family or friends or a house or an apartment or something that he or she has to take care of and deal with on a day-to-day basis. And there may be times when he or she is not on camera or is not as chatty as you want them to be. Remember, there's a million things going in and out of someone's mind on any given day. It takes us time to understand what they're going through, and we have to empathize and understand that there's different parts of their lives and their work days that may not be related to yours. So again, take the time to assume and grant honorable intent to your manager as you go through your journey in trying to communicate as best as possible with them. Thanks again for watching this week's EQ video tip. Hopefully these tips will help you communicate even more clearly and precisely with your manager. Take a look at them right now as a quick recap and try to customize them for the best of your ability. So that concludes our EQ video tip for today. Try incorporating some of these tips into your daily routine. But remember, use what works best for you and personalize it for yourself. Thank you always to our great research team for providing us with some great tips today. As always on EQ Video Tip, we want to end with gratitude. So thank you for watching. We really appreciate it. Here are some resources that you can use if you want more information on EQ going forward. Thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you.